Phil Revill, welcome to Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
Thanks, Ed. Yeah, doing really, really well, actually. Thank you, mate.
Good, glad to hear. And it's nice to be speaking to another member of the It's Easy team. All of you guys seem to be doing fantastically well. So I'm looking forward to seeing where your journey has taken you and learn a bit more about your background as well.
I thought about doing web design because we'd done some web-related projects when I'd worked at the large corporate, and I thought about doing web design, and I kind of thought the only problem with it is that I didn't know anything about it. I didn't really know everything that I needed to know to just go out and build a website. So it would take me a long time to get going on gain the knowledge to do that. And also, as well, being in IT in a large corporate, constantly being sort of sucked back into the support side of things. So, you're trying to work on a big business improvement or business change project, but lots of people are having problems with the new software, and it's really frustrating when they can't, when you've got to deal with little, call requests and so on and so forth, and issues lists and so on. So I kind of thought web design wasn't really going to be for me. I also know as well that I would have been tinkering for ages, on people's websites and trying to make them absolutely perfect rather than cracking on and moving on to the next. And that's when I found the franchise for sale on the same website that I saw the florist. And I thought, that's interesting.
Okay.
I mean, having somebody else do the support stuff and that's got all the experience of actually building websites and understands the importance of security and architecture, IT architecture, and just being allowed to focus on running the business side of it and making sure that the delivery is done well, that really attracted my interest. That was really quite high on the list.
Like you said earlier, it's you're becoming a business owner as opposed to. So I think if you'd have gone down that route and tried to do it yourself, what you're kind of saying is you would have been building a job for yourself, right? Where you were working with the clients, and you could probably manage, I don't know, 5 to 10 or something like that. But you're going through and doing all of the work yourself, and not spending any time on building out your business, growing the business, because you're too busy fiddling with SEO for
back into things.
For the sites. So it makes a lot of sense. So did you then go and take a look at other franchise brands that operated it within web design or marketing? Or
it's just over 10 years ago, so the memory's a bit cloudy. Don't ask me the name. I did look at, like always, you're always supposed to look at 3 options, aren't you? So I did then find a couple of others, or maybe just the one option to look at. But It's Easy and Spot On was head and shoulders above the other one. I didn't really know what you were buying when you bought the other franchise, when you bought a franchise with a couple of the other ones, because they just didn't really have, there wasn't a box full of tools, or that they were giving you. It was just like a logo and something a bit fluffy to do with marketing. There wasn't actually any deliverable from the franchise. Whereas with It's Easy, then as you've talked to some of the other guys, you'll know that we act as the account manager, consultant, sales director, and lots of few other things in our own businesses to find the clients, but then to document what their requirement is for a new website, making it sound really, really techy, to help them write a brief for our designers and then make sure that it's delivered to that spec. And then we do give ongoing support, but it's not real kind of like IT techie kind of support. It can get a bit that way sometimes, but we've always got the amazing guys in the support team to if somebody's got a particular problem with email or whatever, we can forward that on to them, so that the techies can look at problems. So It's Easy. I've got a really solid delivery platform. The other thing that I didn't want to be doing was worrying about pricing, which is obviously set for the franchise, and also worrying about chasing money and doing accounts and all that kind of stuff, which is obviously part of what they deliver for us as well. So, it would free me up to focus on the bit that I wanted to focus on and have a really solid delivery of really good quality websites for clients.
That's interesting. So you mentioned there they follow up invoices for you as well, do they?
Yeah. So I mean, we take payment, T's and C's and payments done up front, So that, I always say to clients, that gets that ugly bit out of the way. You've decided you want to do it, let's get on and do it, and the speed at which we deliver a new website as well, you would be chasing the money before you'd even started, kind of thing. So there's the initial payment, and we can't really get started until that's made. But then there's a monthly subscription for hosting, domain, and all the other, and then the most important bit, the training and support. Sometimes clients forget what that's for, cancel direct debit. Sometimes they go out of business. Sometimes other times clients might have paid for it for 12 months up front. So then there's a renewal for another 12 months, and the guys in the finance team just handle all of that little bits and bobs themselves. Sorry, not themselves, for us. So
yeah. But I'd love that right now. To be honest, in my own business, it sounds quite good. Yeah. But there's something else you mentioned a minute ago as well, though, that something sparking in my head, and that was that your role within the franchise within the It's Easy business that you own, is that you're that translator again, aren't you? So you're taking the client's specifications, which I can imagine a lot of the time are going to be, I just want something that looks really nice, and I want it to be able to direct people through to, making an inquiry, right? Something really woolly like that. So you're taking that kind of information, drilling down into the detail with them, I guess, to pull out exactly what they're after, because you know what's required at the back end with the support team that are then going to be able to create something as close to their kind of requirements as possible.
So for sure. There's kind of like very different styles of websites depending on what the need is for the business. So I always talk about the purpose of the site. Sometimes you get people say, "Oh, I want a website." You go, "Well, what do you want it to do?" Well, I don't know, just be a website. Well, no, you need to, So there's kind of high converting websites. There's websites sometimes that I like to do that that require the website user. I hate calling people users, but the person that's viewing the website to make a considered choice. So it's not just going to get free quote here. It's a bit more considered than that. Obviously, there's e-commerce, there's information resource websites. There's all sorts of different sort of subsets of styles of websites, and helping clients figure out what it is that they really want and what's important to them is the bit that I really, really enjoy.
Yeah. So I was going to say, so does that satiate that kind of thirst that you had, that younger Phil had, to break things apart and see what's happening, and
I think it probably is actually,
solve those problems.
And solving problems, figuring out what the problem is and helping them solve it, is high on that list. And another great thing about the franchise is the sheer number of websites they've delivered in the past. So it takes you a while to sort of absorb all of them so that you can recall them in a conversation. But the best part of the conversation with a client or prospective client I like is, what do you mean like this? So when you can show them something that you've done before and they go, yeah, that's it, because you've listened to them and you've understood what they want, and then you kind of go, I did something similar and it was a bit like this. Do you know what I mean? And you show it to them and they really go, oh yeah. And in that regard, the product really does actually sell itself. My usual process is to show them the portfolio. Our portfolio usually sells, portfolio price sells in our services. Then doing a little demo, either in person, face to face, or in person on Zoom. Then you can show them how they can edit the site themselves. You can show them how they can add pages. You can listen to something where they've said, I've always struggled to add a video to my existing website. You can show them how to do that then and there in a little demo, and that usually signs it all up. So the delivery of the quality of the website, the price point that it's at, but then the website editor and the platform that the It's Easy guys have delivered to our clients really, really sells it in and really seals the deal.
Yeah, the website editor is interesting because there's platforms out. Yeah. So I use the platform, but there's things like Wix and Squarespace that are out there, obviously, aren't there, for people that go on and use. And it's okay. They've got some templated stuff, but a lot of them seem to have two different areas where you can do finer sort of design edits It doesn't update fully back to the original one. And I found myself going back and forth a lot between the two. And I consider myself to be fairly tech savvy, right? But I struggled to get them to kind of connect and update as I wanted to. And what I've found actually using the It's Easy websites is, okay, if I've got a problem, I just contact somebody and I can actually speak to someone on the phone and say, I'm doing this. This is the issue. What am I doing wrong? Am I doing something wrong, or is there something at the back end? Can you help me sort that out? And that for me is something that's really useful and beneficial.
I hear that quite a lot from people that I'm talking to. You know, they've built themselves a Wix website or a Squarespace website or one of the other ones, but it's just not quite what they really wanted or need. You know what I mean? It's okay, it's fine. Logo's a little bit small. I couldn't quite get it big enough, and
stuff like that.
I need to do this, and I can't figure out how to do it, and I can never get that to line up right. You know what I mean? And how can you? So, like with us, you know, of course they've got me to talk to. I'm doing more and more Zooms now, where I actually show people. I've got another bit of software called Loom, where I actually record me doing it or do it with them on Zoom, so that they can see me doing it. And they can understand how I'm fixing that little problem, but also I get a better understanding of what it is. And if it does need to go back to design for them to do it, like a style sheet change or whatever, then we can do that. We understand better. So yeah, clients definitely enjoy that support that they get from us. But also a common theme is the common, like, I did it in Wix, but it's not really what I need anymore. I'm 4 years into business now, and I need something a bit more grown up than that actually delivers results to their clients.
Yeah, and it just creates something, or show me how to do it. You know, as a small business, it makes so much more sense, because then I can just quickly do it in 5 minutes next time that I need to make a tweak, rather than having to, you know, try and send an email off to.
Getting in touch. Yeah, for sure. You know, the franchise agreement was very, very clear. I suppose one thing I'm saying is that I didn't really know enough about websites either to really know. I mean, they looked okay, but I didn't really know enough about websites to examine some of the work that the guys had done and sort of pick it to pieces and see if it was as good as they were saying. So there was probably that element as well. But yeah, so spoke to some of the franchisees, franchise director, looked at the quality of work. The fact that they'd got quite a lot of other franchisees as well was very interesting, was very sort of reassuring, not interesting. And, you know, the guys that I did speak to were, you know, they were telling me, and at the end of the day, you've got to go with a bit of trust, haven't you? So if I remember rightly as well, I think there was a cooling off period as well, which was interesting. So you could actually get into doing some of the training with them and before, you know, and then have a kind of like, actually, do you know what? I'm not going to do this. I think I might be wrong. I might be wrong on that.
So when did you start to feel comfortable with the business then? So was it the day you were in the training? Was it, you know, after you got your first client? I'm wondering, like, because I think it's interesting to explore those fears, because everybody has them when they start a business, whether it's franchised or not. I still feel a little bit nervous 14 months into my own business that, you know, it could all end next month or something like this. And I guess I have. I've invested quite a bit of money into building it up. I've invested a lot of my time. And so that, with a franchise, you're seeing that lump sum in a big amount up front, aren't you? Rather than it being spread out over a period of time. But you still, I'd imagine, going to have this. Is this actually going to work? Maybe 6 months in, 12 months in. Is this? Probably. So I'm wondering when the moment of comfort comes, if at all.
It probably took about 3 months after signing. So the training session, like a week long with It's Easy. It's in depth and that was thorough and technical in places, but I wouldn't say massive. Well, it was reassuring, but, you know, when you come away thinking, well, that's great, I know all this stuff about how it all works, but, you know, they did do some sales training at the end of it and some cold calling training. I still don't like cold calling, so I don't really do that. But, you know, so there was, and that's right. They did set up for us, I think 5 appointments as well to
That's
go
cool.
to. So that was quite interesting. I think I probably fluffed them all because I didn't really know what I was talking about when I went in. But then it took about 3 months for me to get quite comfortable. And he's still a client now. He's a guy that repairs motorhomes. So he does bodywork repairs on motorhomes, and a lot of them. I'm going to go off on a tangent a little bit. So a lot of the motorhomes, like caravans, have got that little textured pattern on the side of the motorhomes, and each manufacturer has got their own pattern, and they've got different model years of patterns and so on and so forth. So you've got this really great system where you can basically take a silicon mold off the side of your motorhome when you've punctured a hole in the side of it, and then repair the hole, and then use the silicon mold to create the texture over the top of the repair. So it's literally an invisible repair. And
Cool.
It's cool, isn't it? I love finding out what our clients do. There's always somebody that does something that you've never heard of.
It's a crazy amount of businesses that are like that. Yeah, for sure.
And I was actually I joined up to a business startup course that was being run by Nottingham Trent University. And I was driving past this little industrial estate every Wednesday morning for about, I can't remember how long it was, 2 to 3 months or something like that. And the guy was really, really, really great guy. Lots of really great information, particularly for somebody that knew nothing about business, about making sure you do your VAT returns and you know all the stuff that you've got to do, the boring stuff. And I kept thinking, I was writing a business plan and all this kind of stuff. And I kept thinking, I'm driving past an industrial estate, and I don't know what any of them do. So one day I drove into the industrial estate, wrote down a few business names, did a bit of Googling, and I found that this guy didn't have a website. This motorhome repair guy didn't have a website. So for the next few weeks I drove past and thought, I really should pluck up the courage to just go and knock on his door. No, he'll be too busy. He'll not want me walking in and asking him a few questions. And long story short, in the end I did. And he just went, perfect timing, sit down. I think he called me son actually, but anyway, perfect. Sit down, son. And I couldn't remember the prices of the products. I couldn't remember all this stuff that he was asking me, and you know, all I could say to him was, "I'll get back to you." So the next day, you know, I went home, wrote him up a quote, didn't send it straight away, waited till the next morning, checked it was definitely still right, sent it to him, and he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." And he's still a customer now, and that was the point at which I thought, you know what, let's just get on and do this and stop. Don't agonise over it. Just go and talk to people. I say nowadays, so that's obviously 10 years ago, I say nowadays that it's conversations that make me money. You know, everything else is kind of like, you know, just the grist of the mill or whatever. So conversations at networking, bumping into people and saying, yeah, I can do that for you. You know, or okay, you're not ready now, but shall I give you a call back in September? You know, all those conversations, it's that momentum and having conversations that is what make you money.
Sure. So how are you striking up those conversations though? Is it now predominantly networking that's kind of your main lead generator?
It is really. I think it seems right now that it's networking. So probably threefold: networking. What we call our regional website. So each one of our regions has got its own website. So I've got It's Easy Nottingham and It's Easy Warwick. So networking and conversations there. The regional website's driving some traffic through now, and you know, referrals from existing customers or people that you know through networking. You can probably, I hesitated then, that's my little tell when I'm thinking. Social media seems to be a thing nowadays, but predominantly people asking for recommendations on social media seems to be a key one. They don't just seem to just find you on social media or do a search, but certainly for a local web designer or local based business, somebody saying, does anybody know a web designer in one of the many, you know, spotted in groups or the local area forums, and somebody that you know saying, oh, you know, Phil Revels, he's a great guy, did our website, never had a problem kind of thing. That seems to be a really good source now as well. But it's doing something with that referral, and that's where the conversation comes into it. So it's following up, particularly on Facebook, because people are often quite, I won't say lazy, but a bit distracted when they're on Facebook. So if you don't know them, they're not in your friends list. You can't. You can. We all know it goes into message requests, so that can be a bit frustrating. But if you can just take a little extra step and just have a conversation with somebody that might know them and see if you can get an introduction that way and make it real, then that definitely works.
It makes sense, and you see them all the time in like for me it'd be like Ashford and surrounding area group or whatever, like that sort of thing. People ask for recommendations, but that's only going to work if you've been able to deliver to a level for a customer who's that happy, right?
For
it's
sure.
It's not going to work if the service is bad. So obviously, you've been with them for a while, so I probably know the answer. But have you been happy with It's Easy to this point, in terms of the delivery? Has there been any hiccups?
I wouldn't say it was completely hiccup free. Every now and again we'll get a delivery that kind of goes a bit awry, and it's either because the client's not been that clear about what they want, or didn't really know what they wanted. Do you know what I mean? There's a way and there's a knack of getting out, using your experience to understand what they're not saying, to determine what it is that they really ought to be saying. But sometimes, you'll do. I remember the first time it happened actually to me, and it's kind of. I always say that I wanted to delight all my clients. So when somebody goes, "Yeah, mate, that's rubbish," you take it quite personally. And I had to sit down and have a chat with myself, and I thought, I've been doing it. I don't know how long ago it was now, but I've been doing this for 6 or 7 years. The guy's telling me that we've got it wrong, or I've got it wrong, and actually, but he's the first person that I've ever got it wrong about. So is it me? Do you know what I mean? And you go back and you look at it, you realise that actually you've written down, you've created a brief that is exactly what he asked for. But when he sees it, he's gone, no, that's not what I meant. And that can be a little bit sort of, the first time it happened, a little bit disheartening. But, we put it right. We always put it right. We will get there. We would always get there. 99% of the time, it's absolutely bang on the first time. And one of the phrases that I've heard quite a lot is, "Oh, they've read my mind. How did they do that?" You know what I mean? So they get it so right. And every now and again, you get a client where we miss it slightly, but we just go back around. We make sure that we get it right the second time. That makes sense.
But yeah, it sounds like then it's not so much the support or the delivery side of things. It's just that communication piece, maybe from the client side, that's not strong enough.
And sometimes we do miss it. Sometimes, very, very occasionally, we do come back with a web design. We go, you look at it, and you kind of go, "Oh, it's not." Mm-hmm. But you've got to, you've kind of got to show it to the client for them to tell you what's wrong with it, so you can then that extra bit of detail, that extra layer of detail, then helps the designers understand how they've got it wrong, and then they redo it. That makes sense.
It's part of the creative process, and I'd say in some ways I'm similar to you in my world. So I'm sales and marketing. I've spent a lot of time cold calling and dealing with clients and account management and stuff like that. I've also spent a fair amount of time creating as well, and creating videos and graphics and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And I've realised that the biggest challenge is that communication bit, that in-between bit between when I'm speaking to a graphic designer and saying what I want for something or whatever. It's just terminology sometimes, isn't it? And it doesn't seem like much, but it's really important to get that right. But no, that's good to hear.
Susie down in Bristol, the work that she's doing with her business is incredible. Steve Axtell, what he does, Nick, what he does with his business, we all do it. We've all got different sort of objectives at different stages. That's the other thing that I've noticed as well, is like Steve particularly is a good few years in front of me in terms of running his franchise, but we seem to be on the similar trajectory. I'm just a few years behind him. So he's got a really good model for me to follow personally. Susie's got some great ideas about what she wants to do, and I'd like to duplicate that at some point, but not quite yet. Do you know what I mean? But it's all there ready for me. you know what I mean, in terms of not quite ready for me. It's not ready made, but it's the conversation and the ideas are there for me to then pick up on and do something similar.
Yeah, that's cool. I'd not thought about that before. There's lots of paths out there already that you can see that your business could go in that direction. So, so what do you see as the future for your business now, then, Phil?
Well, you know that I bought the second franchise region earlier on this year, so and that started on the 1st of March. So sustaining the existing one, Nottingham, as in keeping it going and keeping it growing, not just keeping it still sustained. And then doing the same in Warwick and Redditch, and getting that up and running. Then I think in probably about 4 or 5 years' time, looking at bringing some more people into the franchise. I've run it all with myself and virtual assistants so far. Shout out to Sarah Doyle, my amazing virtual assistant that keeps me on the straight and narrow. So we probably will be bringing in some more either virtual or possibly employed, but probably more virtual, to try and get the benefits of the economies of scale of having 2 regions. Do you know what I mean? Like, I've got extra hours now I could be giving to somebody else to do work for me. Do you know what I mean? To free me up to have those conversations that I mentioned earlier on.
Yeah, no, it's cool. It's I think that's the other thing a lot of people don't realise when they look at franchising as a model. They don't realise there's opportunity for expansion and to turn it and shape it however you want to at the end of the day. Because I guess you could kind of really squeeze the territory you're in at the moment, or expand into that second one. There's different growth opportunities, isn't there? So,
for sure. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you my final question. And I love to ask this one because, hopefully there's some people out there listening that are thinking about investing in a franchise, whether that's It's Easy or any others. Yeah. And I want to try and help them as much as I can. So if you are only allowed to give that person one piece of advice, what would that one piece of advice be?
Think about if you were selling that franchise, or a franchise that did the thing that you're looking at buying, how would you design the franchise? What would you include in the deal? And what kind of support would you be looking to give those people? And if it's there in the franchise that you're looking at buying, then you're in the right place.
That's interesting. That's genuinely the first time I've heard that as a piece of advice. Let me think it through. Does that make sense? What can you get out of it, Art? Yeah, I think that the reason why that works then is because you're aligning values with them, aren't you?
Values as well, and also I think it's the mechanism as well. The next level down from that is, what am I going to need when I'm out and about selling, whatever products I'm buying into the franchise, and if that's provided for me in the franchise, then I'm in the right place. Otherwise, there's a big skills gap or knowledge gap or tools gap that's going to be a problem, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, what you're doing there is you're taking your corporate experience and kind of going, right, well, let's apply that to this structure. And does it look like a good business structure that is actually going to work? I mean, forget about the fee and things like that in between. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I like that. Nice one. Well, Phil, thank you so much for your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you and getting to know your story. So, thank you very much for sharing your time with us.
Thanks, Ed, mate. Same here as well. Thank you.